Trends in the year 2024. That's the topic today with Paulina. I'm not going to say anything else because she's got all the answers. So stay tuned for that opening bell. I don't have a bell today, so ding.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Lex.
Hi, Molly. Hi, Paulina. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well. Wait, now I said something pre-show that probably got you all upset, but you are wearing Philadelphia Eagles green right now. Just so we're clear. Just so we're clear.
I have to represent still, even though we lost.
I know. I think it was okay because they're like slated already, so it didn't matter. Did it matter? No.
It always matters if you're
Okay.
Philadelphia.
It always matters when you lose to New York.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry for that. I rooted for you guys. Okay. So tech trends in 2024, right?
Yep.
Okay. Galma, what do you think about tech trends? Someone just told me before we get into tech trends, or someone suggested that maybe Apple's going to have a rough year this year. I said, no way. I mean, I just can't imagine Apple ever having a rough year, but I could be wrong. So I don't know if you're going to talk about Apple at all, but just check. They're a big tech giant.
I think we'll see companies starting to blend together. I mean, we're talking about the cloud, so I probably we'll see some crossover, and that will change the way business is done, I think. And so what does it look like, Paulina? What is 2024 in tech and cloud? And I mean, it's like you're in a great rapids. It's changing by the second. So what is it looking like to you?
Well, there's a specific trend that I wanted to focus on within tech, and that is cloud adoption plus the combination of artificial intelligence in the cloud. So companies are still working on their business transformation, which is just a fancy way of saying they're going more digital and moving their data towards the cloud. So companies had originally hosted their data on premise, where they had their privately owned and controlled hardware and infrastructure to manage and store all of their data. But the cloud software, that is stored and managed on a third-party servers, and that is accessed online. And in order for companies to make this transition to the cloud, they have to adopt a whole host of cloud-based services. They need to invest in the right IT infrastructure and essentially restructure their applications in order to fit this mold of this new cloud environment. So this transition has been taking place for many years for a lot of companies, but there are many that still haven't taken that transition, and some who haven't even started yet. So this is a really exciting emerging trend that's been happening in tech and AI, and that's expected to continue this year. However, there are some risks, there are some tailwinds that every investor needs to consider.
Okay. Before I ask my question, did you notice I have a halo?
You do.
Can you see the halo?
Yeah.
Is it? You can see it too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're strong. You're a strong Val. You're a strong Val.
That's like a halo.
Yeah.
So is there a short list, Paulina, of companies that will do really well in a cloud computing or storage sort of capacity? Who's the big winner here? I mean, is AWS, is that considered cloud? I suppose Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Services should be a key beneficiary here. So what's great about AWS is that it has so many different tools that developers and companies can use, ranging from small businesses all the way up to large corporate businesses. You also have other competitors in this space like Microsoft's Azure, Google Cloud as well. So there are a number of players in this space depending on what the needs are for a particular company. There are other peripheral industries that should also benefit as well, like cybersecurity, because cyber attacks are a major risk. when you're dealing with a lot of data in the cloud. So companies that can provide protection from bad actors who try to hack these online applications should also benefit with this trend.
Okay, great.
I think you bring up a really good point where what's that terminology that they use, Paulina, about cyber attack? What is increases? What was it?
Yes. So when there's cybersecurity risk, the industry uses this technical term called increased attack surface. And I believe that's a technical term just to say that there are unique vulnerabilities to the cloud when there are so many, players in it.
And then when you're talking about vulnerabilities, probably anything centralized. So biomimicry just dictates that, nature spreads itself out. So if there's a catastrophe, something survives. So to be on a more optimistic note, in that same sense, cyber security, increasing that surface area also could be a benefit in the fact that, when quantum computing comes online, it can allow us to be more pervasive in securing our personal data, which is, the new holy grail, which is protecting our personal data. I also think there's a centralized in tech coming online that when these apps are being built, they're recycling code. So they're using packets that, let's say, an app is use a collage of data set. They don't actually code from scratch across the board. They'll actually borrow. And so if we're building upon building upon building and you don't have that diversity of original code, it does create also backdoors and especially being hosted on the cloud, and AI being able to analyze in rapid fire. You can, hey, we can break in because all of these companies use this same packet of code. So what, when we used to look at companies, Sherman Act of 1933, there was the monopolies, and that was, thought to make sure there's competition. Do you think there's going to be some legal? What do you think, Lex and Paulina? Do you think there's going to be some legal implications of making sure there's originality and compartmentalization to make sure that it's not same code across the cloud, easy to break, especially when quantum AI comes?
So are you asking from like a governmental oversight sort of?
No, I almost think, we had a guest stay. We had a friend stay at the house, and he worked for cybersecurity in the government. I think it was DOJ, and he basically said they're so far behind that you can't keep up. It's just the bureaucracy versus the rapid, build of technology. There's just no way to compete. So I'm more talking about clever kids, the 9-year-old in the garage who's going to break into whatever it's whatever you can't think of the possibilities. So it'll be interesting to see how we navigate that.
Well, yeah, and also that whole cyber security space is as you said, it's a massively growing business, right?
Yeah.
And I would consider that. I mean, I guess that's a tech trend, right, Paulina? I mean, we have to kind of put that under the tech trend bucket, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I see more companies are allocating more resources towards spending on cybersecurity because that's a huge threat. But I actually want to go back to the Sherman Law that Molly referenced, and it's a good observation because in the Google trial, there's a few Google trials happening with the DOJ and I think of other regulatory authorities. And they've been using the Sherman Act as the underlying law that they're saying that Google is violating, but for the advertising market, I believe. And maybe it's for others as well. But we also know that the head of the FTC, Lina Khan, is aiming Amazon. We don't know if she wants to break it up or what her ambitions are for that. But there's, a lot of regulatory push from the federal government on these antitrust cases against big tech firms, and maybe with the cloud being such an important trend, a tech trend this year, I wouldn't be surprised to see if in some way, shape, or form they try to address antitrust areas in this business.
And that's a really tough terrain, because I'm, competition, free markets, and I love all that. So how do you maintain safety and then allow freedom for that kind of innovation? So anytime governments kind of come in and try to navigate that themselves, they aren't boots on the ground, and they haven't. A lot of times they're getting consultants, third party, fourth party advice, trying to, and then next thing you know, we're buried in regulation, and it hinders innovation without keeping us any safer. So it'll be interesting to see. I think there's this really great, because there's a lot of legal stuff happening right now. One great really podcast is Jordan Is My Lawyer, who now is changing. I think she's launching her new thing tomorrow, which is unbiased, and she gives great unbiased synopsis of the legal backgrounds on some of these cases. So go check that out. Really neat.
Well, Molly, you read up on the whole trend here, didn't you?
The which part? No, I'm just nerdy and have no social life. That's another show that we're gonna.
Well, that explains it.
I'm right there with you, Molly.
All right.
Good. Gosh, you guys got to get out more. Holy cow.
I know. I live vicariously through you, Lex. I that seems to be enough these days.
Okay, I like it. So any risks in this sort of field? Any things that could kind of get in the way, make a major roadblock here? Look at technology advancements are always awesome, right? Assuming they can be done efficiently, effectively, etc. Right? But what's any risk I can't think of? Anything out there, Paulina?
Yeah, well, we already mentioned the cybersecurity risk,
Yep.
But in terms of the industry as a whole and companies making money, one risk that we saw last year was companies were scaling back their IT spending because there was a lot of uncertainty around the economy. There was expectations that the economy would slow, so companies were optimizing their costs and pulling back on areas like IT spending, which included investing in the cloud and digital transformation. At least in the short term, though, analysts expect those IT budgets to at least be constrained in the first half of 2024, but that should reaccelerate in the second half of the year as budgets start to improve again. So that's one risk. Another risk is interest rates. I feel like, we can't escape this conversation, but rising rates is, of course, a risk for these mega tech companies, which typically require taking out a lot of debt in order to finance new investments. So while many think that interest rates have peaked, as the Fed expects, there to be some improving data coming out, I think that there's going to be several interest rate cuts this year. And I believe I saw that one of the Fed leaders came out saying that he expects at least 2 rate cuts this year. So that reality is looking to be more and more evident as time goes on.
Okay.
And then, I always have to say, if we don't know where the goal of some goals are just blatantly being announced. So if you know those goals, then you can be predictive in some actions, let's say the Fed. So if you look at World Economic Forum and what those guys are talking about, they really are after consolidation. And so in the extent for interest rates, the higher the interest rates go, the harder it is for the everyday guy to borrow. And equally, when those interest rates increase, it destroys pensions. And so, a lot of pensions are conservatively invested into bonds, and those face values have to get discounted to compete with those comparative interest rates. And so that makes it also harder for them to pull funds out and purchase. So I would be surprised if we saw those interest rates go back to what they were in the days of free money. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
I think that I always like to use the FedWatch tool. It's always been a trusted indicator as to where the Federal Reserve might be taking interest rates, and I always reference that ahead of an FOMC meeting, or when the decision around the Federal Reserve interest rate is going to come out, and that's essentially the market sentiment around where the Fed is going to be taking interest rates. And it seems that looking at tools like that, that the Fed is going to, in fact, it's already baked in basically in the market. Investors believe that the Federal Reserve is going to be cutting rates. However, to your point, when you translate what that means in the real economy, it's still going to be, even as rates come down, things like buying a home or getting a loan for a car are still going to be very expensive because we already have that inflation in the economy. And it doesn't seem like that is going to be going away completely. So it's good news for companies when interest rates are getting lower, but when you look at the average American and what that, net means for the average American, it's I guess okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
So we're gonna let Paulina leave early today.
Okay, I do have one more question.
I know, but I do too. Okay. Do you want to go first, Mal? Your questions, right. Your questions are so good that it takes her a long time to answer them.
No, I mean, I'm just gonna actually. It's not a question. I'll just throw this out here. How about that?
Okay.
So let's take a look at Aladdin, BlackRock's Aladdin. They have the amount of funds that pass through their hands on a daily basis. It's in AI. Larry Fink says it's considered a startup. I don't believe that, but anything new, I suppose is. But they advise in trades. They advise the government in lending. They probably advise the Fed. And so Aladdin really is this something that no one's really ever talking about, but it's pervasive. And we should do a conversation on what Aladdin is and how it functions. So stay tuned for that. Wow. So what's your question, Lex?
Well, I mean, we've already talked about, some of the bigger companies that could benefit from such a tech trend. I know, we mentioned AI a little bit, so that's probably another conversation. But are there any smaller type companies out there that aren't on the radar? Because when I think of tech, I think of the Mag 7, right? Anything beyond that, or not as much in the spotlight that might have a shining star in 2024? And if the answer is I don't have one, that's certainly legitimate. I just trying to think what could be out there that I'm missing.
Yeah, there are certainly a lot of, whether it's startups or smaller companies that are doing a lot of innovation in AI, in the cloud, in all of these popular tech trends. And I believe that if interest rates come down, that's going to help thaw out the mergers and acquisitions environment. So we might see more deal activity, and that deal activity could be really ripe in areas like these exciting trends like the cloud, AI, and that's how some of the smaller companies that are in this space may benefit.
Okay.
So I'll just say one more thing, because you know me, you can never get me to be quiet. So
okay, go.
Well, since it's the weekend, it's Friday morning. If you happen to have a chance to watch documentary Botany of Desire, is this really incredible. It's based off philosophies by Pollock, but it's about how nature, like the apple and the tulip, how we are growing them on massive scales. But what if actually they are using humans to grow them and by using nature's addictive properties of sugar, et cetera, like tobacco, et cetera. So when we think of AI, we kind of have to think of, we really think of it as, is it going to take over human thought, or are we the bootstrap to like the loading program for AI? Is that all humans have ever been? But you might have to think, and this is my point here, that AI may not appear like human consciousness. So singularity might have already occurred. And so when you asked that question, Lex, what are some great stocks that are smaller into,
Mhm.
AI tech. And
Yeah.
we might Google that, or we might use Bard, and they might give us the top 10. But who's giving us the top 10? In which case, one, just like Body of Desire says, is it using that? I love to see the constellation, so I take my iPhone and I get to learn these amazing things. And then it also is curating things it wants me to invest in and driving its own future. So just leave that thought out there. It's really important to do our real due diligence when we do research versus a blase Google search and an AI search. Really dig in.
Molly, do you see the banner? I'm just wondering.
Right. Well, no, because the real CT comment is, are we in a simulation? That's the real error correction codes.
Sorry, Molly, I couldn't resist. Oh, good. No, it's a good point. It's actually a good point. It is a good. It's a very good point.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Paulina, I know you got to go. So thanks for coming on. Have a great weekend.
Topic, as always. Yeah.
You know what? For so many reasons, I love to see Paulina on Fridays, and one of them is the weekend's coming right after. Right?
Awesome. I feel like we should have champagne on the next one.
Done.
All right. Done.
I'm not opposed.
All right. Paulina, have a great weekend. Thanks for coming on.
You too.
We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week.
Okay. Bye, Paulina. There you are.
So tell us where you are, Lex. Where are you?
Well, we're at the home of the Tradier Hub in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah.
Hey.
Yes, I'm in the conference, and what you can't see is there's like a bunch of people in front of me here, like making faces at me.
And check it out. Tradier just received a huge investment boost. So there's a lot of exciting things on the forefront for Tradier.
Oh yeah, we're doing a lot of things indeed. Molly, do your thing where you say, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and whatever else you say, and make sure you go to the Tradier Hub, hub.tradier.com. If you had a banner that said that, how cool would that be?
I know. I think since we pointed out my nerdiness, we should say, if you want to be my friend, vote thumbs up down there, and I'll call you and we'll hang out. Can I do that?
Yeah, and if you're a surfer, you can kind of go out and surf with them all.
But all right. Well, thanks, Lex, as always.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I was a little late today, but I was traveling, so my bad. All right, Ma. I'll see you next week.
All right.
You have a good weekend. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Ding.